You've been right before, genuinely, demonstrably right. You had the data, you had the analysis, you raised the concern before anyone else saw it coming, and the meeting moved on without you. The decision went the other way. Someone else got the credit. Or worse, months later, exactly what you predicted happened, and no one remembered that you said it first. You told yourself the problem was that people weren't listening. That wasn't the problem. Being right is not enough. It has never been enough, and the organizations that passed you over weren't making an error. My name is Zara. This is Zara versus the workplace. And today we are going to talk about the mechanism no one names, why being liked travels further than being correct, and what that means for how you operate. Picture someone, technically exceptional, the most prepared person in every room. When a problem surfaces, this person has already mapped it. When a decision needs data, this person has already pulled it. Colleagues privately acknowledge that the analysis is usually correct. Management knows it too. And yet, when the room decides, it rarely decides in this person's direction. Not because the logic fails. The logic is almost always sound, but something happens in the delivery. The correction comes too quickly. The disagreement lands too hard. The precision reads as impatience. The accuracy reads as judgment. Over time, the room stops consulting this person before decisions, not because the input isn't valuable, but because receiving it feels costly. The person is left asking a question that feels almost insulting to have to ask. Does it matter more that I'm right than that people want to hear me? Here is the diagnosis. That question contains the answer. Because in organizations, the person who gets heard is almost never the most correct person in the room. It is always the person the room is most comfortable disagreeing with. You had the data. You raised the concern. You were right, and the room moved on without you. This wasn't because people weren't listening. It's because correctness and influence are not the same thing, and in organizations, one of them consistently wins. Today, we break down exactly why and what you can do about it before your next meeting. There are 4 mechanisms that explain why likability consistently outperforms correctness in organizational settings. Each one is structural. None of them are about fairness. Mechanism 1. The receptivity filter. Information does not enter a decision unchanged. It passes through the emotional state of the person receiving it. When someone delivers a correction in a way that makes the recipient feel defensive, the content of the correction degrades in the processing. The brain registers the social threat first and the logical content second. This is not a weakness. It is how human cognition operates under conditions of social evaluation. The mechanism is well documented. When a person feels judged by the source of information, they unconsciously discount the information itself as a form of self-protection, which means the most accurate input in the room can be the least influential if the person delivering it has created a receptivity problem. The data doesn't change. The delivery determines how much of it actually lands. Being right is an input. Being trusted is the filter it has to pass through first. Mechanism 2. The consistency bias. When a person is liked when they have accumulated enough positive social history with their colleagues and leadership, their ideas get evaluated generously. Small gaps in logic get filled in charitably. Incomplete proposals get the benefit of doubt. This is not a policy. It is a cognitive pattern called consistency bias. People seek information that confirms their existing impression of a source. The reverse is equally true. When someone is tolerated rather than liked, when the history is neutral or friction-heavy, their ideas get evaluated skeptically. The same proposal from a liked person and an unloved one will generate different questions, different resistance, and different outcomes. The idea did not change, the filter did. The organization does not evaluate your ideas. It evaluates your ideas through its opinion of you. Mechanism 3. The influence architecture. Decisions in organizations are rarely made in the meeting where they appear to be made. They are made in the conversations before the meeting, the hallway exchange, the pre-read, the informal check-in where someone with influence says, "I think this is the right direction." These pre-conversations are only accessible to people who have invested in relationships. And relationship investment requires being someone people want to spend unstructured time with. The person who is merely respected but not liked rarely gets included in the pre-conversation. Their input arrives cold, into a room that has already moved toward a conclusion. Being right in that context changes almost nothing because the decision architecture was built before they entered. The most important part of any meeting happens before the meeting, and only liked people get invited to it. Mechanism 4. The error tolerance gap. Every person in an organization makes mistakes. The difference is in how those mistakes are processed by the people around them. When a liked person makes an error, the social history around them generates explanatory narratives, external circumstances, bad timing, an unusual situation. When an unliked person makes the same error, it becomes confirmation of an existing suspicion. This creates a compounding asymmetry. The liked person's mistakes stay local. The unliked person's mistakes become data points in a broader story about their judgment. Same error. Completely different organizational consequence. Likability is not about being pleasant. It is a structural protection that correctness alone cannot provide. Now extend this forward several years. The person who prioritized being right over being trusted has accumulated a precise kind of damage. Not a dramatic fall, not a public failure. Something quieter and harder to reverse, a reputation for being difficult to receive, technically valuable, socially costly. And what happens to technically valuable, socially costly people in organizations is consistent. They get consulted but not included. They get credited but not promoted. They get respected in a narrow technical sense while being overlooked for everything that requires the organization to actually choose them. The correctness compounds. The isolation compounds with it. And the moment they realize what happened, the moment they understand that years of being right produced none of the outcomes they expected, the social capital required to change the dynamic has already been spent. The game moved on while they were winning a different one. You can be the most accurate person in the building and have the least influence in it. Here is the lens that changes the operating model. Stop treating correctness as a destination and likability as a compromise. They are not in opposition. Likability, real, structural likability, is the delivery mechanism for your correctness. Without it, your accuracy sits in a room no one wants to enter. With it, the same accuracy gets carried into decisions, cited in rooms you're not in, attributed to you in ways that build a lasting record. The goal is not to be liked instead of right. The goal is to be liked enough that being right actually changes something. Influence is not what you know. It is what people are willing to receive from you. 3 moves. Concrete, applicable before your next interaction. Move 1. Separate the observation from the correction. Before you point out what is wrong, name what is working. Not as flattery as accuracy. Most situations contain both. Starting with the valid element before the gap signals that you are evaluating clearly, not just looking for problems, it lowers the defensive response before the critical input arrives. Move 2. Deliver disagreement as a question, not a verdict. Instead of stating the flaw directly, surface it as something you want to understand better. Help me understand how this accounts for X accomplishes the same analytical function as this doesn't account for X without triggering the social cost. The problem gets identified. The relationship stays intact. Move 3. Invest in relationships outside of disagreement. The next time you interact with someone you frequently correct, make the interaction entirely about them, their work, their thinking, their challenges. One conversation with no agenda. This single deposit changes the emotional context of every future exchange. It means the next correction arrives into a different room. Correctness without a relationship is a report nobody reads. You were told that the work would speak, that the data would decide, that if your analysis was sound, the outcome would follow. It doesn't work that way. It has never worked that way. Organizations are not logic systems with human operators. They are human systems with logic occasionally applied. And human systems run on trust, familiarity, and the feeling people get when they think about you. That feeling is not superficial. It is the infrastructure through which everything else moves. Your ideas, your contributions, your corrections, all of it travels on that infrastructure. And if the infrastructure is weak, the content never arrives. Being right is the starting point. It is not the strategy. The person who changed the room was never the one who had the best argument. It was always the one the room was most willing to follow. Think about the last time you were right about something at work and it didn't matter. Drop the word right in the comments if that's happened to you. No explanation needed. Just that one word. I want to see how many of us have been playing the wrong game. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing the things most workplaces will never tell you. I'm Zara, and this is Zara versus the workplace.